In Corinne's picks, we have Junior Elias Andrews. Corinne's picks, we have Junior Elias Andrews. I am so glad that you agreed to be in my program.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has.
Been looking at so much of your work, so much of footage of you all over the place. I know who you are, but tell the studio audience, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, for who you are and what you're doing, a little bit about your art.
First, good evening and thanks for inviting me, Corinne. Fix. My name is Junior Elias Andrews. I'm the founder and CEO of Cocorite House, Jabjabproduktion. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago, live in Brooklyn. I am an artist of a different sort, more of a cultural type artist. So my art ranged from carnival costume making to designing to performing to getting involved in the calypso, poetry, getting involved in productions as well. So there's a couple of dynamics that follows Cocorite House. So we shorten and say Cocorite House NYC because we celebrate all of NYC.
You forgot to mention a chef extraordinaire.
Okay, yes. I do cook on the weekends.
I know you for your cooking too.
Yes, I do bacon shark, which is a local dish from Trinidad and Tobago. And I do a couple of dishes as well now, more vegetarian, going into vegan, in between. Also, I write as well, write the work that I do. I also take part in carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. Do work in Canada, been back and forth in the last couple of years in competition. We have won competition in Trinidad last year, individual African male. We won that. It's a national carnival competition. And we have won competition in Brooklyn for the last, from 2015 to 2018.
Wow.
Yes. Also, I also do teach. I teach now how to make masks and stuff at the senior center, and I do putting together a program for young kids to learn art as a way of using as expression. So if they don't have an outlet, art becomes their expression by using making carnival costumes or getting involved in history, using carnival as a tool for that.
Well, the thing that I appreciate the most about you is that I feel that you're really fostering an awareness of Caribbean culture in New York. I mean, you really have done a good job, whether it's the poetry, whether it's, the teaching of the mask making or participating in carnival. I feel like you're promoting our culture. I'm from the Virgin Islands, you're from Trinidad, but it's still the African diaspora,
Yes.
and we're the same.
Yes, yes. One of the things that for me, I deemed it a privilege to be able to do it. So I don't believe in the focus of myself, but I think that art leads me.
Okay.
And when the spirit gives me information as to how to move, I move. Because you cannot be selfish with culture. And you cannot be selfish with a culture that was there before you. So I'm just one of the vanguards, or one of the guards, or one of the portals, pioneers, whatever they want to call it. Because people were there before me. So I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. That's
true.
So I did not invent carnival, or I didn't invent costume making. But however, growing up in Trinidad, where I grew up from in Cocorite, Cocorite Terrace, west of Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, you had pan, limbo,
well,
dance.
tell people what pan is. We know what pan is, but you have to translate.
Pan is one of the only new instrument in the 21st century that was invented in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's a steel drum. Basic conversation is a steel drum that was pounded and measured and fired and stuff like that to get a sound. And the pan is one of it's Trinidad and Tobago national instruments. So we have, when you talk about pan, you're talking about people like Bertie Marshall, you're talking about Spree Simon. Those are pioneers of pan. Rudolph, those are pioneers of pan. When the pan came about in the 1940s, it brought a different sound because before the pan was dustbins. They used dustbin covers to make songs. Yes, those are the colonial days. So what happened is that when the songs were being made, what saved the pan or what gave the pan a platform is the war between England and Germany, Hitler. Hitler had a big role in giving the Caribbean countries breathing space.
How so?
When the fascist war started, because England had to focus so much on fighting Germany, the resources had to be focused there. So the artists in the Caribbean, who were the pan men, had time to tune their skills and to hone their skills in the dry river of East Port of Spain or in Belmont or in Sawa, Diego Martin or San Fernando. And what that did is that brought a sound, a revived song with a new instrument. So while the English was fighting the war, we were creating music. And that's how the pan became our legacy. Our legacy is in our bloodline.
It's really remarkable because, you know, basically it's an oil drum.
Yes.
And you would never imagine that it could be fashioned into a musical instrument.
But this is the interesting part about it. The pan is not just a musical instrument. It is also, it's like a symphony. When you get into an orchestra of pan, when pan is playing as an orchestra, it's like a live, living, breathing, existing symphony.
Exactly.
You can hear every note. You can feel you can feel the tenor. You can feel the bass. You can feel the expressions of the persons who are playing the instrument. So it's not just an instrument that was developed out of hardship and had nowhere to go. It represented a people.
It does, and now it's throughout.
It's throughout the world.
It's throughout the Caribbean because it's definitely a very important part of Virgin Island culture as well.
Well, the interesting thing about pan music has spanned the globe from since the 1940s. They're up. It's in Japan, it's in Switzerland, it's all over Europe, it's even in the United States military.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. You know what? I want to give the audience, we're talking kind of abstractly, but I want them to know who I'm talking to. So I really want them to see, the first few images are of carnival, but then after that, is specifically your costumes.
Right.
So maybe we can start looking at some of the images.
Oh, sure.
And
yes.
if you don't mind, I'm going to be quiet, and then you can kind of narrate.
So have a look at it.
Describe some of the images that we're seeing.
Oh,
Okay?
sure, definitely.
Can we see the first image, please?
That image basically is a king of carnival. His name escaped me, but this is this year, 2019. He won the King of Carnival. It's a national competition where different artists go and make costumes to compete, to show their skills, their wire bending, their artistry. Then after that, someone actually puts on the costume and dance the costume on the Savannah stage. So they bring that to life.
Okay, so let's look at this next image.
Oh, yes. This is also one of the pieces that was done for this year Carnival. And that basically is one of the, when I spoke to the creator of this piece, he was representing fire. He was representing that freedom, that strength, and also that devil idea that, oh, the devil is bad, but it is more strength, it's beauty.
Okay.
So all of these images came from Carnival 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next image, please. Speaking of the devil.
This is one of my favorites. This is called Blue Devil. Now, this particular image here is the ushering of Carnival. It's a Juve or Juvant type image. So it's the mask and the character is called the Blue Devil. So it's hailed from Paramin.
Oh.
So this particular image was shot on the night of the competition. So they had a competition which is like traditional characters competition. So they have all these traditional characters which represent different things in the carnival.
Is that influence? Because I know you have different populations in Trinidad. You have East Indians, you have Chinese, you have Africans. are some of their characters integrated in Carnival, or is the Blue Devil just something from? Where does the Blue Devil as a character come from? Because I know we have the clowns, we have Native Americans, we have the Zulus, we have the Mokajumbi, but I've never heard of the Blue Devil.
The Blue Devil is one of the unique traditional cultural characters of Trinidad and Tobago. And it's not limited to one race. It's not limited to a particular scope of people. It is right through the country. Anyone can become Blue Devil.
Okay.
However, based on where you are from in different areas, it is more taught. So like for this particular character, they will come from Paramin, which is like north of Trinidad and Tobago Martin, Maraval, the hills of Maraval. So they focus on that particular character, and they develop that character and expand it and contract it and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Same,
okay. I like the pose.
Yes, they are very dramatic.
Okay, the next one, please.
Oh.
This is yours truly.
Now this is me. So this particular character is called Voudon, the Rebirth.
Okay.
The idea behind Voudon, the Rebirth, it came to me last year when I just completed the Royal Obeah in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And I wanted to show the richness of artistry on fabric. That influence came from Haiti.
I never knew that.
Yes.
I never knew that.
Haitian art is one of the most dynamic art you will find. It's very colorful, it's very loud, it's very expressive, but yet still it's fine art. And I wanted to show that Haiti has a great influence on mass. So the idea of doing Voudon, the Rebirth, goes back into Benin, which is a voodoo, or the Western will call it voodoo, basically. So Voudon is the original name of it.
Right.
So when I got the word to use Voudon, I did my research and I found out that Voudon is the actual name.
The authentic name.
The authentic name.
Right.
So I just added the word Rebirth.
Because we know it as Voudon, we know it as Santeria, Condomblé.
Right.
So, you know, and sure there's a different name for it. I guess in the Virgin Islands we would call it Obeah.
Obeah. So the thing about Voudon is Benin. While Obeah would be Ghana.
You're kidding me.
Right. So that's the Asante tribe.
I didn't know that.
So both are religions.
I didn't know that.
But they're both intermingling with each other, because then you have the Nigerian, which is the Orishas. So in Voudon, they also respect Obatala. They also respect Yemanya, and they respect all the Orisha gods or deities. So when you look at Voudon, you have to be able to open your mind to realize that Voudon is not what the Western world put it to be, but Voudon is a collective.
Okay, we're going to go to a commercial in about 1 minute. And when we come back, I'd like you to, I guess we'll continue talking about the art of painting on fabric from Haiti, but also continue talking about how the African religions has traveled to the Caribbean and influenced our creativity.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're going to go to a commercial.
Thank you.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
We've been talking to Mr. Junior Elias Andrews, extraordinary painter, cook, historian, everything. And we were talking about, African religions. We were also talking about your tradition of painting on fabric and incorporating that in your carnival costumes. So maybe you could continue to talk about that, and then we'll look at some more images. I really want people to see what we're talking about.
Yeah. The idea of painting on fabric is not just where you just splash something. It must mean something. Because sometimes when I know for myself, when I was growing up, you couldn't afford a canvas, but you have a piece of cloth. And you used to write on those pieces of cloth sometimes. Or we'll take, we make batik or make tie-dye. So all of that came from that. So when I started doing art, I started looking at the fabric not just as fabric alone. Because I think when you have to express an emotion or express a feeling, you don't necessarily have to have a clean piece of canvas. You can use anything that means something to you, and that becomes your canvas. So for me, I do body art as well. So I started with canvas, visual art, moved to the body, and then from the body, back to the fabric, and then from the fabric, I go back to the body again, because art is a moving dynamic thing. It is not locked into one particular genre or one era. You can say, okay, you have to do it like Michelangelo. If you look at Michelangelo, his best work was on the ceiling. It's not on a canvas. But if you look at Van Gogh, you see some of his best work is on the canvas, because at that time, he approached art from a different era. A few also look at local artists, like one of my great personalities in Trinidad, who I love a lot and admire a lot, Leroy Clark. His work is on canvas. However, the intricacies of his work, which is called obia, is amazing. But he can take that and put it into fabric, onto patterns. So it's not limited, and that's where it comes from.
We discussed including some of his work, and I think we really dropped the ball on that one, because I really would have loved to show some of those. I really admired the work that you've shown me of his work. I also wish I had actually included some of your works on more of your works as standalone works on cloth.
Well, it's not too late.
Well,
it's not too late.
We definitely have to follow up with this.
Because before I came back from Trinidad this year, I went to his exhibition, Obia Art. And the very idea of being there was inspiring, because he had the Igungun. They were honoring him. The Igungun came in first.
What's the Igungun?
The Igungun is an African, I wouldn't say god, but it's an African deity.
Okay.
The Igungun comes in and the Igungun blesses. So he had that in the presentation, and that made everything connect. And then you go into the hall and you see his work, and his work is vast. But yet still you connect with the imagery, because the images of African women, maybe large African women, maybe slimmer portraits and stuff like that, but it covers the garment. So when growing up in Trinidad and Tobago and seeing him on television for years and having the opportunity to meet him this year was like really mind-blowing, So that influence has been there, because when you come from the Caribbean, as we have, our mind is not bent on just one stereotype.
Absolutely.
Yeah? We are taught to think.
Exactly.
And we are taught to develop. And we are taught to create. and we are taught to express. So
Also, I think we're not, you know, our identity is not dictated by someone else, by stereotypes. I mean, there's examples of success everywhere because we're not fighting for opportunity,
Right,
and
yes.
being locked out of opportunity because of racism and or Jim Crow and things like that.
but I think I could expand on it a little bit. I think there is a vast amount of opportunities, but there's also a vast amount of there will always have negative against positive. But I believe, and this is from my experience growing up in Trinidad, for me, my mom and dad is Grenadian. So let me give you a story on that. They're Grenadian. So when my mom about to express herself in whatever language she chooses to, she will tell you where she come from first.
Oh, okay.
So once she identify I'm Grenadian, everything else come after that mean get in line. Get yourself together, get straight. So your mind is not cloudy about where she's coming from because she's expressing. And whether it be good or bad expression depends on who is listening to it. It is an assertion of who you are.
Exactly.
So for me, that has always been part of who I am. So when I came to America, that helped me.
Exactly.
It helped me along because my
Exactly.
principal was black, my prime minister was black, my
Exactly.
president was black,
Exactly.
mommy was black, daddy was black,
Exactly.
first superhero was black, first villain was black. So the black identity is not something that I strive for. I am.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it makes the transitioning in terms of expression easier for me.
Well, it took a while. I think I was in my 40s when I really understood what the concept of a minority was or what blackness meant in terms of the United States. And the way I learned what it meant was by the way people were treating me.
Right.
Following me around in Hugo Boss. And
Right.
I realized that people don't see me the way I see myself. So it took a long time for me to really get it, what it means to be a black person in the United States. I mean, I still think that there's incredible amounts of opportunity here, but it is a different identity.
But one of the things that I have experienced, this is my personal experience from the point of view of being an artist. When I started doing art, I started doing art based on a need to vent, to take a negative narrative and turn it into a positive narrative. And I really didn't know what I was doing. But all I knew is that my spirit said, do this. And I started painting a little square in the wall in my bedroom. And I heard a voice said, your art is going to be unto the glorification of God. And I'm like, okay, I'm a carnivalist. I love carnival. So it was like a little disconnect for me in thinking about that. But then as I grew, I realized that art made space for me in terms of thinking. So when I approach some of my Black American friends, I don't approach them from the perspective of, I am one of you. I approach them from the perspective, you can become better at what you think about, how you think about yourself. What you are is not what people say you are. Dig deep and find you.
Right.
And when you find you, you express you. But you always have to be mindful that what you want for you, you must want for somebody else.
Right. Right.
That balances off a lot of stuff in terms of looking at yourself as a minority, because we are not. I've never considered myself a minority.
Right.
I have no idea what that.
I don't know whether we're
A minority is something to me in government.
I know.
Something
I know.
Has nothing to do with me.
I know.
But in terms of the Black diaspora, as you talk about the African diaspora, we from the Caribbean have had more exposure of independence than our counterparts here.
I think we've had access to opportunity. We've had access. We've had a little bit more self-determination.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think thank God that's the direction that a lot of people are going towards today. I mean, I think that the gains of the civil rights movement, people are definitely benefiting from it today. We have 3 minutes left, and I still want to show more of the work that we have today. We can talk some more, but then we definitely have to do another episode.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So let's look. Okay, so maybe you can describe the next one, and then if we have time, well, we probably won't have time, so we will talk about maybe one or two more, and then we'll try to resume our conversation
Sure.
in another episode.
Yes.
Okay.
So this particular one is the same costume, Voodoo on the Rebirth. But what I did in this particular piece, I added the apron.
Okay.
So the apron traditionally is a god.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. Traditionally, I'm spiritual Baptist.
Okay.
So
Explain what that is, please.
spiritual Baptist is like a hybrid of the Orisha religion. Because what happened is that when we came to the Caribbean, there were different types of religious practice being practiced. So the spiritual Baptist became a staple in the islands of origin. Its originality is African.
Is it only in Trinidad? The
Oh, no.
Spiritual
No.
Baptist?
No.
'Cause I've never heard the term spiritual Baptist before.
Some term it spiritual Baptist. Okay, the term spiritual Baptist came about when Trinidad and Tobago had banned African religion, which was a shouter. So in order to get that repealed, they used the word spiritual. But the originality of the religion is shouter, the name. So to say, I am a shouter means that I would stamp my feet, raise my hand, rejoice in the way that I feel that my God should be praised, but yet still keep all the African traditions that goes with it, which is like the baptism, the drum beating, the different types of rhythms, stuff like that. So this particular piece that I showed a while ago, the headpiece is 26 inches high. So that is the crown.
You know what? We only have like 30 seconds left
Okay.
of this show. We definitely, we're going to continue this conversation.
Yes.
If you want to see more of Mr. Andrews' work or learn more about him, his information will be in the credits. Thank you so much for being with
Thank
us
you.
today. I am just overjoyed. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was
Okay.
a pleasure.
Thank you.